A lot of posts here start with something like, I've never really had any experience with the paranormal. Not the case here. In fact, I'd venture to say that the paranormal is bog standard for me. I'm a dark web streamer. Now before you start calling the FBI, it's not what you're thinking. I don't torture people for some cult. I don't let some abomination hunt folks and take bets. I play games. It just so happens that the games I play usually have a bit of a disturbing backstory and tend to, from time to time, break the laws of nature. The first question folks always ask is, isn't that dangerous? The short answer is, yes, but no more so than any number of science or gun channels on the clear web. Which is to say, as long as you have some real training and aren't a moron, you'll be fine. The long answer is that my family tree has some deep roots, and in addition to spending a couple $100,000 on essentially paranormal community college, I'm naturally inclined to luck when dealing with the supernatural. People like hunters, witches, warlocks, they get all the fame when it comes to supernatural nepotism, and with good cause. What they do is flashy, exciting, but there are a lot of folks out there who were just born with a jib cut in the way that things that go bump in the night like wouldn't let me go on a coffee date with the devil, but avoids me becoming the main character in a Lovecraft novel while making serious bank. Now, I'm going to kill a lot of your buzz here. I've never played any of the big names. I mean, I know they are out there, but a guy's gotta know his limits. Though you'd be surprised at exactly how many carts, tapes, and floppy disks have been haunted, damned, or cursed. In fact, if you are a collector, you likely have one or two in your home right now. Don't go starting up a nest bonfire just yet though. The most common types are targeted, made to ruin a specific person or family's day or life. Unless you really go trying to stir up stuff, you'll never see so much as a misplaced pixel. That's my job. I sit in my recording studio, the master bedroom of a small bungalow. I could probably afford to do an upgrade, but I'm happy with what I've got. I curse as I try for the 10th time to edit out some visual errors that have nothing to do with faulty data and everything to do with a mass murder trapped in a copy of Oregon Trail. The software I use is designed for the task, but like most things involving the supernatural, it's more of an art than a science. You know what, Paul? You're going to need to add another number to your tally because you are killing me with this stuff. I say to the ancient, blocky 486 in one corner of the room. There are some grinding, unnatural noises from deep within the machine, right back at you. And for the record, if I knew you'd mellowed out over the last 40 years, probably wouldn't have bought you. I Need to Talk was real spooky until you started asking how the tigers were doing. Like always, they're the tigers. I reply, depending on your sense of humor, you are going to find the following fact either hilarious or depressing as hell. See, most folks that do bad enough things to be used as a supernatural alternator, well, they weren't doing so of their own free will. Whether simple mental illness or some kind of more sinister compulsion, once they pass on, they are seeing and thinking clearly. No chemical imbalances as a spirit, and even the worst demonic forces have a hard time keeping their claws in ghosts. So often, what I get is less trapped psycho wanting to kill again, and more bored old person who hasn't talked to anyone in decades, or sad wanker unable to atone. But, like all internet personalities, faking a vibe is easy enough, and the pasta is usually willing to cooperate for the odd favor and some company. If you're not that quick on the uptake, pasta is paranormal gamer slang. Obvious source refers to all of the various void-touched entertainment we have. For all of the occult electronics around me, the fact my cell phone startles me when it rings is pretty ironic. The number is blocked, of course. Hello, I say tentatively. The voice on the other end is rough, not panicked, but stern. Leave your house, now, it says. I laugh. I've had fans or haters contact me before, and if you think the level of parasocial BS on YouTube is bad, add in some pseudo-religion and folks who have fried their brain on interacting with the void, and it's not something to screw around within my line of work. Then I stop you right there. However you found my number, lose it. Whatever deep end you've just jumped off is going to get you into a world of stuff. If you think I can amass an Olive Garden worth of pasta and not know a few people to take care of the cultists and psychos, you are really mistaken. My thread is somewhat empty. If this were to get to the point where my life was in danger, I've got a couple favors but it's not like I have a werewolf on speed dial for whenever I get spooked. I need to talk to you, urgently, and you're in immediate danger. The voice isn't pleading, but demanding. I chuckle. You are the second disappointing creep that said that to me today. Listen, if you want a commission or something, just send me an email. My prices are pretty clear. Otherwise, find someone else to be your Jodie Foster, okay? I hang up the phone. You catch that, Paul? Next time, go for that kind of thing. Be vague, kinda angry. I don't get paid. I can't afford to keep you guys. Let's work together here. The editing goes slow, but eventually, I have a usable video. Would have liked to be able to stream it, but I had a feeling Paul might have been a bit of a wet firecracker. When I first see the tall, bald man wearing an outdated tracksuit, I don't bat an eyelash. I assume it's some pasta trying to grab my attention. Oh my god, in a minute, I say, putting some finishing touches on my outrow. Not that I knew it at the time, but what knocked 4 teeth out of my face and splattered my monitor with blood was a lead ball about the size of a chestnut, thrown by the now enraged man. I try to get my bearings, but I'm dazed. I stand, knocking over my chair, but before I can turn to face this Slavic-looking giant, he has me by the throat, pinned against a wall. Fear courses through my body like a fever. Reeking sweat begins to pour from me. I'm 5 feet 5 and 145 pounds, and while my house is equipped to keep me safe from every type of pasta I own, I'm not much for mundane self-defense. 3 people enter the room behind him. One, I'm guessing the leader of whatever the hell this is about my size, but lean, corded with muscle. He's wearing a tactical vest, armed to the teeth, and stalking toward me with eyes full of violence. Behind him is a hefty Asian guy, looks to be in his 40s. He's less armed. A pistol is all I can make out, but I recognize some of the other items he is carrying, and get a sinking feeling of dread. The last member of this crew was an older woman, unlike the psychotic vigor of the tactical guy, or the nervous fidgeting of the Asian amateur alchemist. She seems almost aloof, immediately starting to sort through my collection of pasta, and start putting some into a large duffel. The small man taps the dead-eyed goon on the shoulder, and he drops me to the ground. I struggle to breathe, struggle to keep calm. He kneels, putting his face inches from mine. His pupils are dilated. I'd call it Dutch courage, but I'm guess the source is likely Bolivian. You want me to call you Mateo, or would you rather go by your channel name, Mexican Baseball? I want you to be comfortable here as much as possible anyway. The short man pats the torn, bleeding side of my mouth. The spike of pain almost puts me on the ground. You can call me Robin. You'll find out why in a bit. I'm too scared to spit out the shards of bone and gum. I swallow them and almost vomit before speaking. Call me Matt, I say, unable to look the man in the eye. I've got lots and lots of money. I get where this is going, but you don't want a random selection of pasta. It's dangerous. And unless your buddy there with the wish exorcism supplies is a lot more trained than he seems, you guys are doing nothing other than signing your own death certificate. Robin grins and looks up to the giant. Yuri, I just got threatened, he says smugly. Before I can say that wasn't my intention, the large man kicks me in the chest. I hit the ground as if I was thrown. As I stare at the ceiling trying to get my bearings, Robin sits on my chest, leering down at me. No, Eric isn't, but that's where you come in, Maddie. See, you've got the wrong impression here. You think this is about money, or maybe some kind of cult horse stuff. And of course you'd think that. It's all people like you know. But me, I'm not some greedy ass like you, and I gave up religion long ago. I'm a social worker, an angry one. And do you want to know what makes me angry, Matt? What really pisses me off? The fact the supernatural exists. I know, that's a little broad, but give me a moment. I'm not some kind of anti-void skinhead or anything. What pisses me off is that right under society's nose there is another entire realm of untapped resources. But like always, with wealth comes disparity. People like yourself hoard this stuff, and what do you do with it? I assume Robin's question is rhetorical. I'm wrong. I couldn't name the small, pointed metal device he hits me with. Some cousin of brass knuckles, I assume. Robin's blow splits my forehead open. Stinging blood runs into my eyes. You don't know what you do with it, Matt. Let me educate you. Instead of finding some way to harness all of this for the good of the world, you stream. You use a connection to a rule-breaking source of power to make 3/4 as much as a family doctor. Rage, pure and focused, radiates from Robin's face. There are plenty of scum like you, little trinket peddlers and fame seekers, and in the entirety of recorded history, none of you have done the right thing. In a flash, Robin stands. Before I can try and get my bearings and run, Yuri is picking me up, sitting me in my editing chair. You have no idea how scary duct tape can sound. After a few minutes, I'm held helpless in the chair, hopelessly affixed with not one, but 2 full rolls. If you don't know what you're doing, these do nothing or terrible stuff. The reason no one's used them to cure cancer or solved world hunger is they can't. I plead, trying to skirt the line between direct and rude. It's only Robin, Yuri, and myself in the room. I hear the other 2 rummaging through other rooms. So you say, but I have no intent on doing a smash and grab and taking my chances. My friends know enough, and you, Matt, you can tell us the rest. Robin ends the statement with a wicked grin. No problem, I say, simply. At this point, if these idiots want to play Russian roulette with the paranormal, let them. Didn't think there would be. But here's the part you're not going to like. I don't want there to be any funny business. And try as I might, I've only got one idea as to how to make that happen. Understand, Matt, tonight isn't. If you screw me over, I'm going to hurt you. No, tonight, Matty boy, there is no way you make it out whole. The only question is, how many pieces wind up on the literal cutting room floor? I know something terrible is coming as Robin finishes his sentence. The room is silent. Only the vague noises of searching from elsewhere in the house. Seconds stretch out like drops of molten glass. Not right this second, Robin says, shaking his head and laughing. His 2 companions enter the room, a large bag filled with discs, cartridges, CDs, and handheld devices in tow. They empty them on the floor, and my immediate reaction is there is no rhyme or reason to them, like what someone who knew nothing of cars would bring back from AutoZone to fix an engine. Except for one, a deep crimson LCD handheld console. On the back, gauged into the plastic as if by a knife, or maybe a claw, are the words Mr. Game. That is not good. That is something I regretted buying about a week after doing so, and have spent about 2 years trying to find somewhere safe to dispose of it. And the first question of the night is, which one of these screws with electricity? Robin says, screws with electricity. What are you talking about? My reaction is maybe too genuine. The fact this guy has no idea what he is talking about means his expectations are going to be unattainable. My heart races as I realize how bad this is for me. He looks to Eric. What do you say? Eric is unsure of himself, but Robin doesn't pick up on it. One of those doesn't need power. I just don't know which one. I understand Eric isn't mistaken. He's lying. Whatever street cred he convinced his boss of, he doesn't have. Not to say there isn't any unpowered pasta unplugging the system. And it keeps going as like trope number 1. I just don't own any. I've heard brutality, both literally and secondhand, from some of the more talkative pasta. I've even seen it. Everything from crystal clear moving images no film could hope to reproduce, to haunting 8-bit renditions of real atrocities. But I've never experienced it. That changed. A sap is a leather pouch filled with lead shot. When used correctly, it can generally knock someone out without causing permanent damage. Harry does not use it correctly. The black, almost purse-looking object strikes my hand, and I'm hit with a wave of pain so intense, so pure, I vomit immediately. A moment later, I realize that was just the beginning. That's what internal amputation feels like. 2 or 3 fingers, I'm guessing. You know the bad thing about torture? You can't ask the same question twice, because the second answer is always going to be what you wanted to hear. Which one can create something? Robin's cool, entertained demeanor shakes me harder than any brush with the other side has. My hand is starting to swell, pressure building between the tightly wrapped tape and arm of my editing chair. It takes me a few tries before I can speak. They don't, none of what I have does. I think of lying, but give the man the truth, trying to get this over as quickly as possible. He looks to Eric for an answer. Eric briefly makes eye contact with me. He's right, I think. The imitation relic hunter says, I think isn't a really definitive answer. Robin replies. He motions to Yuri. The man takes one step toward me before my addled mind makes a connection. The golden iCart, the gold one. First time you turn it on, makes this 2,000 seconds. Tween smorgasbord, surge, pizza rolls, that kind of crap. I breathe slightly easier as Yuri stops. See, surprising how much help you can be when you're motivated. Yuri, take an ear, Robin says as the older woman stows the game. Trauma and pain are very entwined. Sometimes so much so that we forget that pain isn't always the worst part of injury. Losing an ear with a sharp blade isn't fun, but it's a very brief burst of sharp pain. Seeing a walking brick of a man dangle this ear in front of your face is something that breaks you. I spend the next hour poorly answering questions that make no sense, losing fingernails, patches of skin, and being beaten to the point where I couldn't feel the individual blows. I find myself helpless, pathetic. I catch glimpses of my battered body in the reflective ancient monitors, and I'm horrified. I don't know how I'm going to survive. Now, for the million-dollar question, what this has all been leading up to. Which one of these things is the most destructive? Robin asks, the question I've been dreading. That one, I say, my mind broken long past the point of resistance, but still trying to avoid disaster. The red one, I say, attempting to gesture with my head. There are 4 red ones. Which is it? Robin's tone is short. I make a decision then that fills me with pride. I'd rather let them do their worst than say it out loud. That thing, the supernatural equivalent of a damaged grenade, needs someone to say it. Eric chooses this point to show he has a little knowledge. As everyone knows, that is a very dangerous thing. I think he means the Mr. Game. The con artist's blunder is immediately obvious. Every light in my home shuts off, even the incessant whirring and beeping of the pasta is silenced. The only illumination coming from the black on red LCD screen. It displays simple text, taunting salvation, quick game YN. Robin seems elated, in an almost religious state of awe. Eric looks out the door and starts walking backward, his face blanched. We need to get out of here, he says. What enters the room is an eyeball-straining, vaguely human horror, a man-shaped mass of shifting pitch black and digital-looking red lines. His laugh is digitized chaos, and with a flick of his hand, every screen in the room is filled with the almost dripping-looking red and black lines. I try to tell someone to turn off the game, but my voice is drowned out by the hellish static now screaming from every speaker. The solution is so simple, but nearly impossible at the moment. Eric starts trying to shout something over the din. The bits I catch sound Hebrew. He gestures toward Mr. Game, dramatic flourishes of his hands. Now I don't actually know if spells are a thing, but I can tell you, either way, Eric is no wizard. Mr. Game thrusts a claw-like hand at Eric. The man sees death coming and closes his eyes, but the blow never lands. Long seconds pass before the Asian man has the courage to open them again. Once he does, dozens of clawed hands, pixelated claws snake out of each of the monitors. It isn't a quick death. Each takes a handful or so of flesh before retracting back into their digital hellscape, turning Eric into a dying, Flint's body over the course of about 30 seconds. I knock my chair over and try to inch toward the handheld. 1 foot bare, with all of the toes broken into swollen lumps, pushes me inch by agonizing inch. Robin is lunatic calm, Yuri is stoic, but even his dead shark's eyes show a deep fear. I realize I never caught the woman's name as she attempts to rush past the entity. If she'd asked, I'd have been able to tell her. With something like Mr. Game, space isn't really an issue. He isn't just the form in front of us, he is a force that has taken over this area. She makes it out the editing room door. We hear footsteps on my stairs, then silence. The noises were horrific. If I were to be nice, I'd just describe them as eating noises, but that wasn't it. It was more like a garbage disposal that enjoyed its job. For a moment we see a harsh pixelated version of the woman's face display on the monitors, before fading back into the black and red stag. I'm inches away from the handheld, my already mangled toes twisted into every angle. But true, Mr. Game appears to grow, his static from spreading through the room as he glides toward Yuri, Robin, and myself. I slam my torn and skinned forehead into the system, nothing but a blinding burst of pain that threatens to make me pass out. Another misses, entirely my abused neck muscles missing the mark. The third, though, like a light switch, turns the impromptu horror film off. Robin is laughing, giddy, energized by this display of supernatural force. I can see the concern on Yuri's face, but either he's being paid well or scared of the small man. The little psycho flips my chair up, sending fresh pain through every part of my abused body. Didn't I tell you this guy would be useful, Yuri? Oh, the stuff I am gonna cause with this thing. Matty boy, this is the kind of thing that will make people listen. This is the kind of thing that will give a voice to the voiceless. We are gonna make history, kid. As soon as I make sure you aren't going to pull a runner on us. Robin slowly pulls a long combat knife from his vest. The tip pieces the skin just behind my knee. My eyes are wild with shock. My brain a mess with fear and trauma. Then, a voice, not one I've heard much, but familiar nonetheless. It's low, harsh, and angry, with just a hint of a speech impediment. Which one of you guys is Mateo? The owner of the voice enters the room. He looks to be in his late 30s, 6 foot tall, and built like a boxer. He wears dress pants and a short-sleeved black dress shirt. A gray suit jacket is draped over one arm. Robin looks shocked but confident, hand on an oversized pistol in his tactical vest. Me, I say, having no idea who this guy is, but knowing his plans for me can't be any worse than Robin's. And all of the Ghostbusters from Nintendo games is over. The man stalks into the room as if he isn't outnumbered and outgunned. Yes, I say, confused. The man grins, revealing a mouth full of shining silver teeth. Well, Matt, I'm Rick and I'm your new best friend. Rick says. From under the gray coat a massive explosion happens, tearing the garment to shreds. Rick throws it aside and is holding a large, black revolver that's of steel and plastic spray from Robin's tactical vest, and he hits the ground screaming, "That's gutshot, and considering your stupid ass didn't have a plate in that plate carrier, there are parts of all your little army surplus toys in your intestines." Rick kicks the downed lunatic as he speaks. Yuri hesitated, but not long enough to get the gun from Rick. The massive pistol gets thrown across the room. The fight is mere feet from me, and while I can't say there was any kind of technical grace to it, it was clear both of these men knew what they were doing. As the blows land, I notice one of Rick's arms is covered in layers of mottled, ugly scars. Knives come out, and I find myself craning my neck to avoid backhanded slashes. My heart races knowing the outcome of this fight determines my fate. Both men are tired, cut in dozens of places. The Russian smiles, pulling on reserves of strength. My heart sinks as Rick waves his hand in submission. I'm done. This kid isn't worth my life, and I'm sure that lunatic that hired you isn't worth yours. Rick says. Screw you, Yuri says simply. How much screw you does 100K get rid of? Rick retorts, most, but I don't take checks, little man. Yuri's statement creates a thick tension in the air. Slowly, calmly, Rick reaches into a pants pocket, pulling out a set of keys, tossing them to the bleeding bruiser. That car is about 80K, there's another 40 in the trunk. We square, Rick says, sounding like he does things like this daily. If I go out there, and it's Lotta, you won't make it out of the house. Yuri replies, shoulder checking Rick as he walks by. I start to ask Rick a question, and he holds one finger up, silencing me. Wait for it, he says, as I wonder what I'm waiting for. The explosion shook the house, lighting fire to my front porch. Oh my Christ, I needed that. Stupid bastard. So Matt, Rick walks over as he speaks, expertly cutting me free from the chair. I've got some ghost-related problems, and you were the only person I could find for the amount of money I had to spend. Bit of a dick move to ask you for a favor after helping you out like this, but that's where I'm a kid. If it helps, this place is going to be crawling with Russian mob, and whoever the hell that little fella was attached to really quickly. Help me out though, I'll make sure that isn't a problem for you. Rick's offer seems like a lifeline, but it could just as easily be a fire to my frying pan. 20 minutes later we are getting into a car that is most certainly not worth 80K, as my house is engulfed in some flames that were expertly prodded along by the mysterious man driving me. I told the guy I'd help him, but to be honest I am just as likely to take off the first chance I get. That being said, I wouldn't be posting here unless I needed advice. What do you guys think? Do I owe this guy anything? Do any of you know who he might be? What I'm getting into? Feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm at a loss.